Glad to be meeting with you today. My name is Toyin Tafade. I happen to have the honor of serving as president of an institution, Albany College of Pharmacy and Health Sciences. So I say that because this information is something that is very apropos to the professional space. And so you will see the logo on the slides, and that way I wanted to be upfront. I'm going to be sharing my screen. Thank you so much for inviting me to this series. It's a delight to serve each one of you, as I mentioned when we were at the banquet. And I trust you brought a good friend, somebody who you want to succeed as well. This is the last slide we shared the last time. I want to thank the organizers of the program. And I really know that they have prayed already in the beginning. And so we're going to continue in the conversation. We talked about failing forward, and in summary, of what we did last week is really knowing yourself, knowing your strengths, knowing your goals, knowing your aspirations, connecting with your mentors, attracting the right mentors, keeping your mentors, charting a course, setting a plan, and then acting on the plan. So I have a question for you. How many of you, I'm curious, how many of you completed the Strengths Finder exercise? How many of you put it in the chat so that we can see if you completed it after our session last week? I want to know who the superstars are in the group. This is how you determine who's serious about their future. Who has completed the exercise? Ooh, nobody. How about that? Okay. All righty, all righty. Okay, so you can imagine what your homework assignment is. So that's a test for you. You want people to be mentoring you. They're going to see if you're using the information they're giving you, okay? To see if you're worth the investment, the 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 1 hour of time they're spending in you. It's a test. And so you have seen how that is. That's how people would see, should I be spending time with so and so? I can talk all I want. What are they going to use with the information? So keep that in mind. Therefore, this is your homework. Your homework is to take a look at StrengthsFinder 2.0. You can Google it. It shouldn't cost you more than, I think it's about $20. I don't know who's done it recently. I did it so many moons ago now. If you buy the book brand new, don't buy a used version. I know you're looking at costs. Don't buy a used version. Let me tell you why. In the used version, the code to unlock the assessment, there's a 20-minute assessment if it hasn't changed now. And you need a code. It's individualized to you. It'll give you an action plan of several pages long that you can actually look at to begin that work around what should I be doing to improving upon myself. We're doing this because you want to improve upon yourself. So let's do it right. If you buy a used book, you'll get the information in the book, but you won't get the privilege of a very specific assessment that is tailored to you. So make sure that you invest in you. And guess what? If you can't invest $20 in you, why should anybody spend tens of thousands of dollars on you? You have to believe in yourself enough to be able to spend $20. So who is going to complete this assignment before the next one? Who's going to commit to doing this? It's a 20 minutes investment in your own life. Who's going to do the Strength Finders one? Okay, one person. Well, that's Belen, and that's all I need. Thank you very much. So I know that at least one person is going to do this. Okay. There are a couple of articles here based on some of the questions that were identified for folks. And in the articles here, and we can put it in the chat for you, building a career based on strengths. So that's why you need to complete the Strengths Finder. This article is really nice. I encourage you to read it and apply the information how to build a strengths-based career through personality assessments. To thine own self be true. If you don't know yourself, how are you going to know what you need to do next? This is Forbes. You can Google these articles. You can find it towards the end. We'll send you the links to these articles. There was also a link to an article that based on a question that I think somebody asked us last time, what's the difference between sponsorship and mentorship? And I sent that article to you, Minister Ellen. If you'd be so kind to share it with everyone, that would be great. All right, so we have our homework assignment. We're going to jump right in. There are a few questions that came up from last time that I'm going to focus on today. And I call it networking 101, 102. Now, some of you are curious about how should networking look like for introverts. Some of you are curious about how it should look like for extroverts. And then there's an important part is the food or the meal that is presented during opportunities of networking and how should you handle yourself around food in general. So we'll talk about meal or dining etiquette. We'll talk about proper presence or attire, how you present can determine whether somebody wants to engage with you or whether they think they should take you to the hospital. So this is important. We're going to go through, we're going to be moving very quickly, and my hope is to be able to allow you to ask questions in the end. I know this is being live streamed, so if you're on any of those channels and you have a question, I know the organizers will advise on how you should present your questions, but we'll be asking questions, answering questions towards the end. I'd like to give you an opportunity to do that. So here we go. All right. So what we will cover today, we'll identify some key points to note as you network, list issues that may come up during networking, what differences may be in networking as an introvert or extrovert, explain the basic expectations of presence, attire during networking, and then the basics in dining etiquette. All right, so networking for introverts. How many of you think you are an introvert and you think that networking is only for extroverts? How many of you think that networking is only for extroverts so that extroverts have the better chance during networking? I'm curious. I am curious. Looking to see if anybody has some thoughts. I'm looking at the chat. So Olua Busolami thinks she is wait, you raised your hand. Is it to answer my question? Okay, Elena feels that way sometimes. All right, all right. I think it's easier for extroverts. Okay, yeah, okay. Interesting. Very interesting. Well, we'll go through and at the end, I'm curious what your answer will be. So here it is. Make sure that you do your homework ahead of time. If you're an introvert and you're going in for networking, you know there is an event coming up or there's a chance to gather together, or they called it a reception. They call it different names. It's all an opportunity to network. Wherever there's people gathering, it's an opportunity to network. Don't wait for you to see the word networking before you believe it's a networking opportunity. Is somebody trying to say something? All right, so the organizers will help me mute the folks that might not know they are not muted yet. So do your homework ahead of time. Don't wait for the event to say networking opportunity before you know that, okay, let's keep that. You have to always keep that networking hat on. Wherever there's a human being present, you can be networking. It might be in the plane. Networking just means having a conversation with someone else and building your own network. On the plane, the person sitting to you might be a key individual that you need. I have told you how sometimes I have met board members, potential board members at the airport, on a cruise ship, in the plane. Conversations that even have been able to serve someone because they needed help on a certain area. Because we had that conversation, we had an opportunity to get to know one another. You never know where it is that God is going to place your helper of destiny, and if you're not having a conversation, then you just don't know. It doesn't mean you should talk to everybody and their friend. That's not what I'm talking about. That could be exhausting, particularly for an introvert, right? Now, what would you say if I told you that I am an introvert? You say, no way, you can't be an introvert. Well, I am actually an introvert, and I have learned how to extrovert as appropriate. Do your homework ahead of time. What kind of event is it? Is it an event of young people? Is it an event of mixed generations? What kind of event is it? That's what's going to determine how you prepare and you plan. Many introverts like to be sure. They want to know everything before they go. Well, know before you go. Do your research. What kind of event is it? How long is it going to take? Is it a 3-hour thing or is it a 5-minute thing? The way you prepare for 5 minutes is different from the way you prepare for 3 hours, right? You don't want to go to an event with somebody and you the one looking like Debbie Downer, saying, when are we going? Can we go now? That shouldn't be you. You have to be able to bring your A game. You have to be able to bring your smile. You have to be able to show that you want to be there. Those are the kinds of people want to talk to. So if you're going there hoping that somebody will have pity on you, that's not the event you want to be in. And please don't go with somebody if you are going to be the Debbie Downer of the place, because that other person is going to try to be shadowing for you all along. That is not fair. You are making sure that you are making it about you. So put your hat of happiness on, whatever that looks like. Like somebody will say, happy yourself, make sure you plan that I can smile and look nice and be happy for 30 minutes today. Okay, let's do it. Plan the best 30-minute opportunity for that event. Go show up in your best A game. When you're done, you exit, and that's good, and you leave the rest to God, if that makes sense. How long do you plan to stay? Know that ahead of time. When my husband and I go for events, not for purposes of networking, but for purposes of serving, for example, we talk ahead of time. Okay, how long are we going to spend? Are we going to stay for the reception or not? They asked us for one task. We focus on it. We're done. We're out. Because sometimes we have meetings back to back, or we haven't even had a chance to rest from all the work that we've been doing for the week. You have to think about making sure you rejuvenate, making sure you rest and are charged for the next day ahead. So don't go staying in a networking event and you're there for 5 hours and you're useless the following morning for work. What's that supposed to mean? No, no, no. Plan and strategize. What's the agenda for the day? Okay, they're just registering. Well, maybe there's nobody to talk to, but maybe there's somebody to talk to. You just never know which portion of the event you're actually going to make a meaningful conversation. I happen to be a person of faith, and therefore I believe that as I plan my time and as time makes itself available, I trust God that whoever I'm meant to meet, I will meet that person some way, shape, or form. Either I go there and meet that person or that person comes to me. Somehow or the other, I trust God, and the things that have happened over my past few decades is just amazing. And I know it is only by the grace of God. Who is going? Who is there? What is their background? Is the president of the United States going to be there? Is it the governor that's going to be there? That will determine how you dress, how you show up. You don't go there in your bathing suit when you know the governor is going to be there. But some of us, it's amazing, some individuals who decide to show up to events wearing things that you're like, who is that? You have to really make sure that the who is that they're asking is, who's that? I'm impressed, as opposed to, who's that? That's not the kind of question you want. What is their background? Read about their bios. Who are the kinds of people coming to this event? How do you need to prepare? Do you need to go there talking, or do you need to go there more listening? Some people have assumed that you go, you just talk to somebody, you ask one question, and that's it. No, 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 no. Sometimes you have to watch the room. What's the prevailing culture of the people who come to this place? If you know somebody who usually goes to those events, if it's a recurring event, ask them about what are the do's and the don'ts, what you should say and should not say, what is considered a landmine that you should not step into. Those are the things you need to do to get your homework done ahead of time. Are you going alone? Well, then you need to know what time you're going, what time you're going to show up, where you're going to park, which door you're going to walk through, how you're going to walk through it. Is it raining? Is it sunshine? I mean, there's so many details that will eventually make you feel comfortable. You've done your research, you've gotten all the details, and then you walk in because you feel like you're ready. Yes, but if you haven't done your homework and you just stumble in the door and you're wearing the wrong attire and you meet and everybody, and oh my goodness, the governor showed up and now they're taking photos, and then you're hiding and say, I'm not photo ready. Never ever be on photo ready. Always be ready for a photo. Always be ready for a photo. Then you show up confident, you show up smiling. Let me give you an example. Just a few weeks ago, I was traveling. I don't know if I've shared the story at this group. I was traveling for an event. They invited me to come speak to, leader. I was in India, Hyderabad, and they were inviting me to speak to leaders of schools, of pharmacy in the country. So the room was the room was full of these bigwigs who have flown from different portions of the country just to listen to presentations. It was a conference they had made. The convener had waited to make sure I was available before they scheduled the rest of the events around my own availability. I was like, God, thank you, Jesus, for this kind of favor. Right. So they sponsored me, they brought me down there, and the flight was long. It's like one of these, what they call it, 15-hour flights, before you get over there. And I have this approach, and I just thank God, is when I'm in a plane and I'm going for a business or a conference event, I am wearing, a jacket. Then if I happen to be sitting in a place where they can hang my jacket for me, or one of those where I can kind of hang it a little bit, I hang it up and then I change into comfortable wear to sleep in the plane. But the moment we're landed, I change back into business attire so that I'm ready to roll no matter what. I brush my teeth, freshen up, all of that so that you're not like funky or whatever it is. You do the necessary. Let me tell you, thank God I did that. I do that regularly, but this day was the day that I said, Lord Jesus, thank you that I do this on a regular basis. They arranged for somebody to pick me at the airport. They picked me up at the airport with my luggage and everything. After a 15-hour flight, you know how you feel like after a 15-hour, but thank goodness I had done all the necessary and I changed. The moment I got to the hotel, all the men, the organizer, the host, the people who invited me, they were lined up in suits, ladies and gentlemen. And they stood there and I was thinking, Lord Jesus, if I were wearing scrubs or if I were wearing a sweatsuit and my flip-flops, or I was wearing one of those fluffy little sandals, you can imagine how uncomfortable I would be feeling in that environment. But because, thank you, Jesus, I was wearing a blazer and I had transformed into something business-like. When I walked out of the car, I didn't need to feel uncomfortable. I greeted them properly, thanked them very much, and they said, oh, you must be jet lagged, you should go rest, and then you come and present. Ladies and gentlemen, you need to do your homework. You need to show up ready at moment's notice to be able to handle a camera or somebody who surprisingly comes up and wants to meet with you. Who is still with me? Who's learning something? Put it in the chat. Put it in the chat. Who is learning something? Who is learning something? Who is learning something? Networking for introverts. We're still doing what to do when you arrive. Do you go for the food first or you do go for conversations? Now, many of us are more comfortable to just go and find the food because at least you are doing something because you don't know what to do when you walk into a room. The etiquette is you don't go to the food first. Let me tell you, if there is a host who is running that event, find that host, thank them, shake their hands, smile. Thank you so much for organizing this event. Carry on a conversation with them, get to know them a little bit, and show that you appreciate them. It's not the food they put out that you are there for. Think about some key individuals. Have goals for networking events. I want to meet so-and-so. I want to meet so-and-so. I want to talk with so-and-so. I'm talking about professional networking now, right? And then at the end of the day, you can say, I spoke to these three people and I had a goal to meet these three people. I had a chance to speak with them, even if it was just for a few minutes. Relationships don't happen overnight. If you try and load up a relationship on one day, people will think you are freaky. So therefore, pace yourself. A few tidbits here and there, conversations. You may not even have to ask a question. Just listen. If you're a good listener, you are a perfect networker because you don't have to say much. You have to just know 2 or 3 questions and then listen. People like to talk about themselves. The more they talk about themselves, the more you learn about them, the more you know how to adjust to be able to build that relationship. And the more you know whether the relationship will even work out or not. Therefore, be grateful that you're a listener if you don't like to talk too much as an introvert. So I think that introverts actually have an advantage over extroverts when it comes to networking. And so here we go. So you go to the conversation first and be strategic, like I said. Bring your business cards. Nowadays, they have e-cards or QR codes. Be ready. How can I reach you? Because you might share your story and you are the impressive one. You're the superstar in the room. And people are trying to reach you and you don't have anything ready. Be ready, be born ready. If it's a conference, bring copies of your abstracts or be willing to share PDF maybe of your presentation if it's not proprietary, of course, so that way they can have a link with you. At the moment they give you your email, their email contact, that is a way of maintaining contact. They may ghost you for a few weeks. Don't feel bad about that. Another day they might say, wait, who's that lady who presented that research? Or who's that lady who gave that presentation? They might reconnect with you because you were a good person. You seem to be nice, right? And so therefore, they want to re-establish that relationship. So don't get discouraged if things maybe lag a little bit. I can't tell you how many times I've had conversations with people from different countries, and that even takes longer. Their relationships have been building for years. And then all of a sudden last year, one of the folks from Taiwan that I've been talking to about a partnership with my college, for example, he indicated and he said, oh, we want to sign an MOU. See, but if he said no the first time and I started looking at him funny or didn't talk to him at conferences, then when he's ready to say yes, I won't be available for him to even want to say, come, let's sign an MOU. So you have to remember that these skills that I'm teaching you now will help you generally in building relationships, and it will work for small things and it will work for big things as well. So we talked about conference, bringing copies of your abstract, then know yourself. Remember, I mentioned that at the first presentation. To thyself be true. Know yourself. What makes you comfortable? What makes you uncomfortable? If something makes you uncomfortable, just know how to excuse yourself from that circumstance. That's what you need to learn. And you might need to read about that. You might need to, find phrases that will make that person feel uncomfortable while you are trying to cover your own self, so make sure that you understand that and you can navigate appropriately. Continuing in this conversation of networking for introverts, you have to think about good questions to ask. Tell me about yourself. That's one of those. Tell me about your career journey. Again, people like to talk about themselves. If you position the question well and you ask it sincerely, not one of those where you say, good morning, how are you? And you really don't care how they are. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about how you can ask a question, say, wow, you have so and so, and you come from UNC and say, oh yeah, I went to UNC. You have to show some excitement and something that you connect with them. Find something, whether it is the skates that they love or whether it is the weather in the states they're from. Find something that you have common ground with. Don't focus on the things you are not, in alignment with. Focus on the one thing that you have connectivity with, whether it's the same month, that is your favorite month. You'll be surprised what makes people really, really, really interested. Sometimes it's sports. People seem to trust other people who love the sport that they love. They can carry on a conversation around that. They let their guard down. They talk more about their kids who's doing this sport and so on. And it goes on for 20 minutes and they talk about their favorite sports person and this and that, whatever. That's how it is. And then you can ease in something like, oh, I saw this about your business and I'm really impressed about that. What advice might you have for somebody like me who's just starting off? What are one or two, three things I should keep in mind? Or is there a particular book you would suggest I read? So that it shows that you're trying to learn. People appreciate when they have value to add. So you have to put yourself in an opportunity to be a learner, right? Tell me about your career journey. And it depends, right? If it's a peer or if it's somebody you're trying to mentor, there are different ways. You can network with people who are going to add value to or people who you're going to add value to. It depends on the environment. Just never know who is the link in the chain of your life that you need to be in connectivity with. Find something impressive or unique about them. How are you going to find that out? By listening. And I know you introverts, you know how to listen. Now, listening is not this, right? Listening is you have to pay attention. You have to show that you are listening, not just be quiet and look at them and think they're boring and, oh, when is he going to stop? That shows on your face. You have to truly connect to what they're saying and be able to repeat things that they're saying to show that you're following them, So think about that. And you can practice it. You can practice good listening skills. Find something mutually common, talk about that. Stay away from controversial topics, please. That would not be the day to let people know how you voted, because you don't know who's in the room. You do not know who's in the room, right? Spend some time with one person and then move to the next person of interest in the room. Don't look like you're a butterfly flying, 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 fly, fly. That's not good. Even if it's 2 to 3 people you were able to make a good connection with on that particular day, that's good, but make sure it's meaningful, right? That at the end of the day, perhaps you can share a card or an e-card or something like that, but also be mindful of the people in the room who might want to talk to the person that you're talking to, particularly if you came early and you happen to meet the host, right, before everybody else came in. Don't just attach yourself to that person and then you don't let anybody else talk to that person. Please don't do that. So those are some tidbits to keep in mind for introverts. All right, more things to consider for introverts. Closing statements, because at some point you will meet that person who wants to talk forever. They are so in love with their life that they have to tell you chapter 1 and chapter 132. And at some point, you're going to have to look for a way to say, sir, ma'am, I love your story, but I'm gonna, you have to look for a way. And here are some closing statements to consider, or I would say transition statements to consider. So things like, I really enjoyed listening to your story. Perhaps we could maybe you liked something you wanted to collaborate on. That would be a seg, right, to that. But if it's one of those where it is, this was great, but peace, I'm out. Well, there is a way you need to say that. I really enjoyed listening to your story. I'm really going to have to head out. If you have a meeting afterwards, some people, hopefully you won't need this, but sometimes, some introverts, they're looking for, please call me at 8:15. Call me at 8:15 so that I can peel out of this event. Hopefully that's not you. But sometimes that works if you don't know how to get out of a situation. I would love to learn more about if there's something that really fascinated you, but unfortunately there's not enough time. Tell them the truth. I would really love to learn more about XYZ ABC. Perhaps if you shared your email, perhaps we could follow up on this conversation. So things that I do with folks in order to be able to continue the conversation would be I might meet them for breakfast, for business breakfast or business lunch or something like that. Or if I know they're going to an event, I will try and strategically sit not too far away from them so that way we can continue that conversation. Ask for a copy of their abstract by email. Say, for example, it was a conference and you really liked their research, but everybody was rushing them and you didn't have a chance to get a word in. Well, you could drop your card or request specifically for an abstract so that way you can begin conversations and maybe set up a 15-20 minute meeting to ask more about their research. Would you be so kind to share? So you let them know what you need and then you say, unfortunately, I have to go for another meeting, or I would really love to hear more, learn more about this. And would you be so kind to share? And then that way you excuse yourself and thank you so much for your time today. Maybe you don't have anything good to say so much about what's going on, but you can say thank you. Thank you is the most polite thing that doesn't have any judgment to it, right? Thank you. Thank you so much for your time today. And then as you're shaking their hand, it's a nice wrap up. Your body language starts shifting towards the exit. And I'm really going to have to excuse myself at this point. Please enjoy yourself. Thank you so much. And that's it. If there's someone you would love to continue to connect with, then of course, always make sure you exchange information. The safe way to exchange information professionally is through cards, email. LinkedIn is a great one as well. Now, there have been times when I have met with the individual several times, and I know that this individual, it would be appropriate for me to be able to have maybe their cell phone number, for example, professionally. What I do, because I meet so many folks, is I would, if it's somebody of the same gender, it's usually easier, right? But if they want to share that contact with me, that's great. If they hesitate, that already tells me something. Because if I can trust you for my conversation, but you don't trust me, there's a lot that is to be said there. The other thing is, if it is the opposite gender, you have to be very careful about that. So when I'm in conversation with individuals, even business related or professional related, I make it a point to get to know their family, and I share about my family. I have a husband, I have kids. So that way there's no question about the reason for which we are having this conversation. And you have to be certain that said individuals, because they're professor or doctor, this is a professor, that doesn't mean that they are professional. Does that make sense? Professor doesn't equal professional. professional sometimes. Therefore, you have to be very careful, particularly if it's of the opposite gender. Otherwise, people may misinterpret. Some guys, what they do is they will never give their phone number out, and that's actually a very protective thing, and that's good. Now, if I've met you, you've met my husband has met you, most often than not, I give them my husband's number. Let me tell you, because my husband's number is everywhere. So that way they know that, okay, I trust you not to give you a number. But then there are certain individuals who that, you have to understand the comfort level before you decide to what point can you share what with who. Networking for introverts, you can do this. Sometimes the person you meet is not for you, but for somebody else. Maybe somebody who looks up to you knows that you're going to have a contact or connection with this individual you're about to meet. Be courageous. Be a leader. Practice your smile. That's the best thing you can wear to any event is your smile. And so I know that many people's cameras are off, but I wish that I could have you actually practice your smile right now. So your practice, I'm going to ask you when you come next time to come dressed to impress, and I'm going to ask you to come to practice your smile. It's Zoom, so hair up is all you need to worry about, right? Okay. Practice your handshake. Practice your handshake. Don't do spaghetti floppy handshake. Don't do firm handshake as if you're from the gulag. Make sure it is nice in the middle, firm and decent. When you go for networking, you need to decide on your drink. What are you drinking when you go there? Order it with confidence and a smile. There's usually a little bar area with menu receptions, and you walk in and you request what your drink is. I usually drink water, water, no ice. That's usually what I drink. I don't drink alcohol, and I don't have to be ashamed of that. If you are not sure how you fit in and you're worried about what you're ordering, then there's so many non-alcoholic options: sparkling cider, spritz, juice. I have a picture of something, a Pellegrino, I think is what they call it. You want to sound fancy and hoo-hoo, that's fine. You could do that too. So that way you don't feel like, well, you're a nobody. The truth is you are somebody. You just need to be confident in yourself. If you walk into a room confident, people will want to buy the dress you are wearing. They won't know you got it from the thrift store. But what they know they can't buy, or what they don't know they can't buy, is the joy of the Lord within you. That's what it is. But sometimes we think it's the perfume or it's the outfit or what they did. No, no, no. There is something within you that is so powerful that nobody can put a dollar figure on. Recognize it. Know yourself, know your God, and walk with confidence. So there's a way you have to hold a drink when you're networking and you're having a conversation, everybody has a drink and so on and so forth. And so so I have my bottle of water here, they give you water, they have a cup. It's usually more, fancy to have a cup with your drink in it than to have like a bottle like this. It depends. Look at the environment and see and adapt accordingly. Sometimes a bottle is fine, but then if they offer you a glass, use a glass. I recommend that you make sure you watch your glass. You just never know, right? Depending on how crowded it is. I remember I was in a place, it was very crowded. I was drinking water, and we had some conversations and so on and so on. You don't know whose stuff, saliva or whatever is going to drop in your drink. So watch your drink, hold it close to yourself. But also, somebody was going to help me get a drink, right? And I said, what are you drinking? I said, water. Okay, so they brought me something, which I don't know what was in it, to be honest with you. But when I took a sip, it didn't taste like water. It looked like water, but it didn't taste like water. And I just stopped drinking it. I didn't ask him questions. I didn't say, wait, what? I just left it. and that was it. So make sure that you watch your drink. Networking for introverts, you have to think about dinner and lunches, opportunities for networking. You can network even in the elevator. You never know who you're going to meet. You never know who you're going to meet, who's going to ask you questions, those kinds of things. You have to be ready. Be strategic about where you sit. If you know there's certain individuals, I remember going to a meeting with colleague presidents, and I had met with some, I listened to what questions they asked, so I kind of knew, okay, who do I want to get to know? Who do I want to build my network with? with, and I don't mean it in a negative way, but there are just some people who you're more likely to gravitate to because of mutual interest. And so when we were having dinner, I'll say, "Oh, where are you sitting?" And if that person looks like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, let's sit together," go with it. Just go with it. But if they're looking at you like, "Well, I'm going to see this," so don't take it personal either, right? Just flow, just flow, just flow, just flow. Have a conversation with the person next to you. So everybody's been seated. Usually it's the host that would determine who sits where. Sometimes at conferences, nobody cares, or sometimes they actually put a placemat so that way you know where you're supposed to sit. Just make sure you sit comfortably and make sure to carry a conversation with the people on either side of you. It's just polite. If you were the person sitting next to someone and they did not talk to you throughout dinner, how would you feel? You'll feel like a zero. Therefore, make sure that you say hello to the person next to you. Introduce yourself. How are you? Where do you work, or which city did you come here from? Those kinds of things. Don't salivate over the bigwig in the room. On your table, there might be somebody very, very, very important. It's nice to be respectful, but don't overdo it. You know why? Because everybody else will feel like a zero. The key is to make people feel comfortable. And when you learn that art of making people feel comfortable, it'll go with you wherever you need to be. So think about who is the second in command. Maybe you're intimidated by the bigwig, and that's okay. Who's the second in command? Who's the organizer in the background? Go talk to them. They will remember you, that you notice that, wait, I did some work behind the scenes. The power of the people who do work behind the scenes, they are the ones that are introverts like you. Therefore, give them the necessary flowers, acknowledge them, point out the great things they do. Be a great listener. We talked about that. It's the best skill you can have in networking. So I believe that introverts actually have a leg over extroverts because you can leverage some of those unspoken skills to be able to be successful. Now, for an extrovert, you probably used to talking already, and people think networking is talking. Most of networking is actually listening. Therefore, if you're an extrovert, be friendly. Don't flirt. People may misunderstand your friendliness to think that you're doing it over than what you need to do. Don't dominate the conversation. You're a natural talker. Listen more than you speak. Okay? Make sure that if somebody has a point, you listen to them, you pay attention to them, you thank them for their thought, you acknowledge that. Don't interrupt. Some people do it a lot. Some men do it for females. Many females may not assert themselves. And so guys think they don't have anything to say. Don't assume that. Wait for them to land. Have they finished? Are they taking a breath? Are they thinking about what next to say? It shows that you're being respectful. If you're an extrovert and you tend to just take up space because you're so uncomfortable with quietness, something is wrong. You need to be more mindful of the body language and the people in the room so you come across more inclusive. And when I say inclusive, I mean inclusive of the voices around the table. Show interest, make eye contact. What's your body language? If you're the one that walks on, you sit on a desk and then you put your hand like this, you're showing like you're dominating, you're taking up space. Watch what space you are. You're the person, you've been in a plane, right? You get into a plane and somebody decide you're in the middle, somebody's in the middle row, and then they take all their hands and they put it on the thing. And you that you're by the window, you can barely even find space on that armrest that's meant for you to share. Then you can tell people's personalities by how they take up space. So with your body or with your words. So if you're an extrovert, you actually have work to do to make sure that you are not taking up too much space with your voice or with your behavior. Widen the circles for others to join. How do you do that? You're talking to one person and you feel like you've got their attention and you've been talking to them for the past 1 hour and that person is praying under their breath. They're praying in tongues that, Lord, please deliver me from this person. What you need to do is try and be mindful of other people who want to talk to that person. Take your turn. Take your turn. Maybe you just jump the queue. Someone say, hey, I want to talk to you, and you completely sidetrack this individual who's been quietly, respectfully waiting to talk to this individual. You need to be mindful of your environment. Widen the circle for others to join. So I actually believe there is more work for the extrovert to do than the introvert. So I'm going to ask that question again. If you were feeling like you had it difficult because you're an extrovert, how comfortable do you feel now going out there and doing this thing? Let me see the chat. Let's see what you think. All right, all right, all right. I'm seeing some hands up. I'm seeing some hands up, watching our time. Watching our time, watching our time. Okay, good. So networking tidbits. So this is an example of the Pellegrino. It looks fancy. It's water. It's just sparkling water, really. They gave it a name. So when you go say, could you do, do you have a Pellegrino? And people think you're drinking something special. It's sparkling, natural, mineral water. And end of story. H2O sparkling with some carbon dioxide in it. That's what it is. Okay. So here we are, networking tidbits, additional things you should know, regardless of whether you're an introvert or an extrovert. Follow up, always follow up with a thoughtful note. It was a pleasure to meet you at such and such and such a place. That shows you are paying attention, particularly if this is a conversation you want to continue. If you were thanking God after that conversation, that, phew, that's over. Don't send a note that suggests come to me tomorrow. That will be disingenuous of you and it will show on your face. Does that make sense? Your thank you after the networking session would have been just fine. If it was an interview, that's different. You're obligated. Well, I strongly recommend if it's an interview networking, you do have to say, thank you so much. Again, you don't make an ask. You don't say, let's meet again. But if there was something that you believe maybe you could follow up deeper on, this would be the opportunity to be able to say, it would be nice if we could meet again to talk more about, and be specific. Don't just say, it would be nice to meet again. That could look like you're trying to date somebody. That's not what you're doing here, right? There is business you're having to get done. So that's something you want to keep in mind. So follow up with a thoughtful note that shows you are paying attention. If they told you stories about birthdays or kids or pets or hobbies or travel or allergies, I put allergies here for a reason. I met this lady, I'd been looking at her from afar, really superstar person in the field. And an opportunity presented itself. And I just saw her sitting down. She looked tired or something. And I went to her and said, everything okay? All is well. And she said she thought she was having allergies. And I happened to carry, Zyrtec in my purse that day. And I said, oh, I have anti-allergy medicine and I'm happy to bring it for you. She said, oh, yeah. So I said, sure, it's no trouble whatsoever. I went to my room, all the way back to my room in the hotel. I brought the thing out. I came back. She was still there. I came back and I showed her. She so appreciated it. The thoughtful things you do, people will remember. So it's not about extrovert or introvert. People will see your heart by how you treat them. How are you treating the next human being to you? I suggest you avoid alcohol as much as possible. And let me tell you, I've seen too many individuals who come to an environment, there's alcohol, there's non-alcohol, and then they think, wow, look at all the options. And then they just start taking one after the other, and then they start acting funny. They start saying things they have no business saying. They start doing things that are embarrassing. And they're not even drunk yet, So I suggest that you do not, that's not the impression you want people to have of you before they leave, right? And you don't know the concentration of whatever it is that they're dishing out to you. Don't judge anyone with alcohol, though. If you go, you're on a business trip and so on and so forth, everybody's doing their thing, you do you, but don't feel like you need to comply with what everybody else is doing. Don't let anybody pressure you into doing anything you have no business doing. Keep an eye on your drink, like I said. Eat beforehand. I must underscore that. I can't tell you how many times people come into the room and they make a beeline for the sandwiches. And it's like, come on now, this is for tasting. This is not for having a meal. It's just something for you to, keep busy while conversations are going on. Sometimes you might be able to take taste samples at the end of the day and it might fill you up. But the purpose of coming there shouldn't be first the food. Don't do that. And so I usually even tell my kids, I say, before you go for an event, make sure you eat. I'm going to share this story with you. One of my sons went to a restaurant and he was really looking forward to the restaurant. It was somewhat expensive. He got there and they served him something so small. It was so disappointing for him because, these young people are still growing and he needed to fill up. And this was dinner. And here was this thing that was looking like a snack. And so he texted us and he said, oh, he took a photo of it. He sent it. He said, look, I had a laugh. I laughed so hard. You know, it was one of these fancy restaurants. I laughed. I said, eat bread, eat more bread. Eat more bread, drink water so that it will fill you up. So that by the time you actually get to the little thing that you're good. But if you eat beforehand, then you wouldn't have to raise the standard on whatever it is presented before you, if that makes sense. So remember your etiquette during the meal, whether it's a reception, whether it's a dinner, whether it's a lunch. Remember to be polite. Be a gentleman, be a lady. You need to be on tip-top behavior. I don't care what culture you came from. When you are at an event, make sure you're on tip-top behavior. Be polite, be a gentleman, be a lady. People are watching. They're watching how you choose to jump the queue, or whether you choose to let somebody else have their way, or whether you think that you're going on the air in an airport and everybody's lining up and you think that your own seat is going to arrive before everybody else's seat. You know, you have to remember, be polite, be a gentleman, be a lady. People are watching you. You may not know, but people are watching you. Proper attire for networking, dress to impress, understand your environment, understand the dress code. Sometimes they will tell you what the dress code is. Follow the dress code as much as possible. It's better to dress up than to peel off than to dress down and be embarrassed. We had an event and somebody showed up and it looked like they were in their lounge wear, and I was like, um, maybe you might want to consider changing your attire. Went back, came out, and said, now you feel more comfortable. So you have to really think about that. I put some pictures here because the definition of dress has been so confused over the past several years. So a picture tells 1,000 words. I like this one. I Googled it and it was quite nice for the guys. Business formal. I call this business. Actually, in some cases, I even I guess this is business casual, but business with me, business professional, I guess I should say. This is business professional. In my mind, they call it business formal. Business professional, you may not have the inner coats there, but you still have the suits and definitely a tie. Business casual, you got that short sleeve thing going on, but remember you have the pants with the belt. Belt is good. No belt, it could look sloppy. You don't want to look sloppy. Again, if somebody's going to have a conversation with you, you don't want to look like you're there to take out the trash, right? There's nothing wrong in taking out the trash, but for that day, that's not your job, if that makes sense. All right. Smart casual. This is a new one that I've been hearing about. They got the jeans, but then you dress it up with a little blazer and nice shoes to go with it. That's like, you've traveled in, there's a reception that night. They tell you, oh, it's smart casual. And then you go, you change your clothes, and then you kind of dress it up and look a little snazzy, right? And then this is definitely casual. Jeans is casual. Do your best to tell yourself jeans is casual. Don't confuse yourself to think this is okay. All right. There's some companies where they say it's okay to dress down. They're beginning to realize that dress down actually resulted in reduced productivity. And so some companies have started changing that rule. So don't assume because you just got hired somewhere that Friday is always dress down Friday in every single company. Not in mine. So make sure that you are aware of the culture before you go doing that. For the ladies, I'm going to spend a little more time on the ladies because that's where some confusion sometimes is. These are obvious, business casual. Now she has a blazer on, so she's a little bit more formal than the others, but they look nice, presentable, comfortable. He's in a suit, so that's great. But look at this. They brought this smile. Look at the smiles. Look at the smiles. Now, she's not sure if she's smiling, but you have to bring a smile. The moment you smile, people don't even look too much at your clothes. They look at your face. That's where the focus should be, is the face. All right. Here are other examples. This is more casual, obviously, but she's wearing the pump, so that kind of elevates this outfit altogether. And then with the nature of the blouse and so on. And notice that they make sure that the necessary is covered. I was in an interview with a colleague, and a student was trying to interview for a role, yeah, and she was well endowed in the upper portion, and as she was moving in her chair, she kept doing this, so it was almost as if she was emphasizing her upper section. And the guy who was next to me, I didn't even notice that it was affecting the guy. Honestly, I didn't even notice. I was just listening to what she had to say. And he said, that she's trying to be influential or something like that. And I looked at him and I was like, oh, ladies, please make sure that you are not coming across, because that could be, even if that was not your intention, make sure you're not coming across as if you're trying to influence something or the environment. Okay. So dress in a way that your gifts are not overly expressed, for lack of a better word. So here we are. This is another way, you have a dress, you got a blazer, so this is a somewhat formal, decent shoes, you have a purse there. And then for the lady on the right, some of our younger people, they tend to wear a little shorter stuff. But imagine if you went to an event and you had to sit down with this thing. And when you sat down, usually you have to allow another couple of inches for when you sit for this thing to ride up. And then the guy sitting right directly in front of you, or worse, when they put you in a bus. And those buses, it is face me, I face you. And then you sat down, and the guy has a direct visual line into some of the private stuff that is going on down here. Be prepared. When you dress before you leave, sit down. See what happens to that dress that looks fantastic on you when you sit down, or when you raise your hand, or when you shake hands, or when you bend down. Make sure somebody checks you out before you go out in public. Very important, very important. You might be feeling good about yourself, but somebody else is looking at you with a different intention. Yes, they shouldn't do that. However, how you might be coming across is you are ready for a different kind of activity when you're showing interest in the conversation. So your dress says a lot. I am professional. I'm here for business, or I'm professional, but I might be okay with some other things too, depending on how things are going. So be careful with that. Meal etiquette. We're going to seg into meal etiquette now. I was initially going to show you with a different dress, but I said, we don't have time for that. You know what I'm talking about. If you wanted to attract a certain kind of attention, you know the power of your outfit, you know the power of what you reveal or not reveal. So make up your mind that you will keep that focus on your face. Let the best thing you wear be your smile. Practice it. Practice it. Get feedback on it. There was one year I made smiling my New Year's resolution. I kid you not. The church had first started, and people would ask me, "Are you okay?" And I'm thinking, why are they asking me, "Am I okay?" But because I had this serious look, because I'm thinking about things, I was fine. But because I was just in my thoughts, as an introvert, sometimes you're in your thoughts. And so my face didn't match what was going on inside of me, because I was just constantly processing. And so I had to constantly think about what was my face looking like when I smile, and I had to work on that for a whole year and beyond. So I just want you to know that we grow, we all grow. Meal etiquette. Who's ready? Who's hungry? I haven't had dinner yet, so I'm going to try and wrap this up in case you're in the same boat. Meal etiquette. Now, I showed you a few pictures here. Many of you have had meals at different locations. The table is set in different ways. Here is one example. Usually this would be the water glass, and then this would be I don't know if you can see my mouse moving actually. Can you see my mouse moving?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And this will be the wine glass, right? And then, of course, you have the utensils right here, and we'll go into it in a little bit more. And this is sort of like a decorative item, but then you have the dinner plate, and then you have like a salad plate, and this looks like a soup bowl. And then your napkin is over here in a decorative item. So you take that out, you put the napkin on your lap, you sit, and then you wait for the course. Now you can see that there are a couple of items, it looks like a spoon and then a little fork. Typically, anything that is on this side of your plate is either for dessert or maybe for coffee or tea or something like that. So that's how you think about this. Then they tell you here you can see some, it looks like Sue, I think. It's a place card, so it's a very formal, it looks like. So you sit wherever your name is. This is not the day when you try and say, no, I don't want to sit next to Jack. I want to go and sit next to Courtney. No, 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 no. You sit where you're placed because they have done a lot of work to determine who sits where. And I could tell you this, that even in my boardroom, when I'm receiving guests, I work with my assistant to determine who sits where because the dynamics of the environment can change determining based on who is sitting where. And if you don't take care of who's sitting where, you don't have control over that environment. So be respectful of your guests and sit where they ask you to sit, please. All right, here is another example of a place setting. This one is easy to look at. It has a little bit more than what we saw in the last one. Now you see that it says Peyton here. So there's the place card, there's a napkin. And then I think this is one plate, but this might be a second plate for salad, or maybe it's just a design. But anyway, we'll get to things. Then you can see your cup of tea or cup of coffee there. Over here, you have three different glasses. One is for water. One is usually like a white wine type of glass. And then this one here is your bread plate. So there's a knife that is dedicated for the bread and the spread that you're given, or butter or margarine, whatever spread you're given. Okay. And then this looks like a deep bowl, if I'm looking at it correctly. So it might be a soup bowl that you can use. Now you can see there are two forks, one knife, two spoons, and you're thinking, I only need one thing to eat. Yes, that's right. But the way the etiquette is there's specific utensils you should use for each dish. And it's important that you use the right utensil for the right dish. Otherwise, they think that you have no clue. That's why we're having this conversation. I remember my dad teaching me this as a young girl. He would bring a bowl and he would put soup in it, and then he will bring a spoon and he will show us how to drink it. And he says, when you're drinking your soup, right, you don't do this or pour it down. You take your spoon. It's usually the really deep spoon, and you drink from the spoon, and you don't do that, please. Same thing if you're drinking from a cup. If you happen to have a straw, don't do please don't do that. Those are the things that you have to learn. Every time you see these utensils and it's like, oh my God, it intimidates a lot of people. Remember to work your way from the outside in. Don't start from the middle. Start from the outside in. When you look at this, then that means, okay, there must be a salad that we're going to eat. So that's your salad fork right there. This is the dinner fork. Usually a fork goes with a knife, right? Fork and knife. So this is the dinner fork. This is dinner knife. Then there's a spoon. There must be a soup or something. And then there's another a spoon there. Then you start wondering, I wonder what's going to be on there. Maybe the spoon was meant for the teacup because it's not on the teacup. So that might be that. But possibly there might be a dish that requires a fork and a spoon. There's some dishes like pasta that require you to twirl the pasta with a fork and on the spoon to balance it before you actually eat it. Don't be one of those, if you like pasta, where you pull the pasta up and you go, please don't do that. Okay, so we're moving forward. I hope you're learning something. This is dinner etiquette. So this one is labeled nicely for you. I picked these pictures from the internet. It labels it nicely. The placemat, this is the placemat. This is your bread plate. We talked about that from the prior one. This is the bread knife. When you take your bread, if you ever get to a place and you're confused, there's just too many things and you're confused, like, oh, what did they say? What did they say? What am I doing? Just do this, See, just do this. This is a B. This is a D. Your bread is always on the left. Your drink, the D for drink, is always on your right. There are times when there is like a circular table and the place settings are so close together, you might find yourself taking somebody else's bread. Don't let that be you. Okay, so when you do this, you know which one is your bread, which one is your drink. And you sit, you're comfortable, you're good to go. If for some reason somebody came to that dinner or lunch and they didn't learn this thing and they took your bread, don't tell them you have my bread, bro. No, 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 don't do that. Just wait, let everybody get their stuff. The waiter can reset, what you need for you. The key thing is being gracious with everybody. Does that make sense? All right. So if, you have the water glass, and then with the wine and so on, what I just do is when I get there, I just turn the wine glasses upside down, and that already sends a message to the waiter that I'm not intended to drink. They take those glasses away. They don't have to keep bothering me every 5 minutes. Do you want to top up your drink? It's like, no thanks, no thanks. How many times are you going to say no thanks? So if you turn it upside down, that is fine. They know that you're not intending to drink alcohol that day. All right, so like we said, this is the salad fork, this is the dinner fork, this is the dinner knife. There is another knife here that you can use for your salad, right? They're different sizes, meaning that this would be the smaller meal, right? And then there's a spoon. Number 12 here says it's a soup spoon. So that means as when you see the shape of the spoon, you know they're going to bring you soup at some point. So you know that that's what that's going to be. And typically, they're going to bring it in the order in which the utensils are. In some restaurants here in the US, you will notice that, oh, I got to check my time. We're at time. Oh, time flies when you're having fun. Okay, so here we are. There are times when, they don't place everything all out. They just bring it when the course is about to come. And the waiter will just come and bring a different knife. Then you know the next course is going to be beef or something like that. All right. And then up here, number 8 and 9 says dessert spoon, dessert fork. So depending on what they bring, you might need a spoon, you might need a fork. Okay. Key things to keep in mind, don't eat your bread like a burger. Don't do this. When they put a bread on your table there, don't do this. Please don't. You're supposed to cut it up with the knife and then, or with your hands, actually. And then you're supposed to, if you want butter on it, then you can get a little piece of the butter, put it on your plate, then take out of that spread, and then you can put it on a portion of the bread. When you're eating it, you take one piece at a time to eat. One piece at a time to eat. Again, don't do this. Okay. Napkin placed on your lap to eat. You use it to wipe your mouth. Don't put it in here like a baby or as if you're about to eat crabs. If you're eating crabs or lobster or something that's going to be really messy, they will bring you the proper bib for that. But for regular dinner, the napkin stays on your lap, please. All right. If you're going to the bathroom, don't put the napkin on the table. You put it on your chair. That shows you're coming back and to continue this meal. When you're done with your meal, you put your knife and fork together at a 4 o'clock position. 4 o'clock position means it is like that, okay? In Britain and so on, it's actually 6 o'clock position. So like how this napkin is from north to south is how it'll be. Then that sends a signal to the waiting staff that you're done with your meal. Always say thank you. Usually the waiter will come from one side of you. They train them a certain way. Look at them, acknowledge them, say thank you. If your spoon or fork falls on the floor, don't pick it up. Don't bother. When they come by, you can let them know that, would you be so kind, and you just get a replacement and keep going, okay? Try not to disrupt or feel bad or, just keep that in mind. As you're using your fork and knife, so here's a meal setting recap. I took some photos about how to use your fork and knife. But how to use your fork and knife, there's a certain way. If you've watched Kingsman, the senior guy, James Bond type guy, was teaching the younger guy, Igsby, I think his name was, and you can watch that and see how he was teaching him proper etiquette from the British standpoint. This is a commonplace setting that you will see at lunchtime and so on, where there's just one plate and it's just two courses. So you have the salad and then potentially a soup and then dessert. Or maybe coffee, and then you have the bread plate, and that's the bread knife. See, this knife looks different because it's meant just for the butter, right? Not necessarily to cut open the bread, but to get the butter and to spread it. All right, so be mindful of what you order. Don't order something messy if you're on an interview. That there might be an opportunity for networking and you think, oh, we're having a meal. This is not part of the interview. Don't deceive yourself. A lot of things are revealed when you're eating. They look at how you hold your fork. They look at how you talk to people or don't talk to people. Or you were just eating the whole thing because, man, look, it's filet mignon. And then you order the most expensive thing on the menu. Don't do that. You're supposed to watch your host to see what they are ordering. If they're ordering in the $18 section, stick to the $18 section. Don't go and order $52 because you have a guest who they're paying. All right. Some things that you need to keep in mind. So you have to follow your guests, your host, right? And be mindful of the other guests that are on the table. So for example, when I went to India, my hosts, they were eating with their hands. And I thought that was a little interesting because I wasn't expecting that. So I watched them and I saw how they were eating. And I just followed them. I took the bread, I dipped it in the thing, and I ate like they did. That way, I'm honoring my hosts that I am aligning with the culture to be able to demonstrate that you matter. If you're trying to build relationships with people from different countries, food, language, big top things. If you despise their food, you despise their language, they will look at you like you're not worthy of a relationship. Key takeaways: know yourself. Your smile is your best attire. You can do this. Networking is for everybody. Mind your manners at the meal or the reception. So in summary, we've identified key points to note as you network. We've listed issues that may come up during networking. We explain the differences that may arise with introverts or extroverts, explain the basic expectations of attire during the networking, and lastly, we explain the basics in dining etiquette. Next time, leadership in the workplace. This is one of the topics that you had identified. And what we will cover, we list the qualities of a leader, the evolution of change, and how to manage as you transform. We expect you to be growing, and how to enumerate solutions to challenges faced during the change process. I want to thank you all for your time today. I hope this added value to you. If it did, please do let me know. And I hand it back over to the moderators.
Wow. Thank you so much, Mark. This was a great session. Thank you so much. I hope that every introvert and extrovert in the house has gleaned something today. If you thought you had it challenging, I hope that you've gotten some tips from this. And of course, I realized that no one has it easier between the extroverts and the introverts. Everyone has something to learn and to improve on, and of course, the food etiquette was important. So that was wonderful. Thank you so much, Ma. And I know that the time now is 9:06, but if we have questions that we want to ask, I think that I am ready to collect those questions and to let Pastor Tony answer them. So if you have questions really quickly, you could just drop them in the chat or on mute, and Pastor Tony could quickly answer those questions before we pray. But if I'm looking through the chat now, there are no questions. If there's none, we could prepare those questions for next week, and then we can answer those. Oh, I see one. It says, "How do you do if you go to a network event and meet with a person who knows the same things you know, such as a good listener, not talking too much, and knows not talking too much, knows all the manners, and he or she is introverted as well, but he or she is a person of interest, a person that you want to network with. How do you go with that kind of person? Do you start a conversation with such a person?"
Absolutely. If they're a person of interest, then you have to be prepared with your questions. And I think I gave you some examples. If it's a professional setting, they're, good to meet you. If they're a person of interest, what interested you about the person? I saw you on your LinkedIn profile and it was very impressive. What struck you about that? Start there and then ask for more. Tell me more about, and then be quiet and let them talk. If they're a good listener, they probably are prepared with questions for you too. So you'll be prepared to speak. And that's how the conversation goes. And then you get into a spot where hopefully, it becomes a flow as opposed to you're trying to wind yourself up type of a thing. And that's the best place to be when networking occurs, right? Is when the conversation is easy. And that takes deliberate, intentional conversation.
Awesome. 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 Um, I think someone asked if we could get some of the pictures from the presentation.
Oh, sure. You can also, search online though, but I'm happy to share it with you.
Okay. And Pastor Tony has dropped the links to the strength assessments in the chat, so please do well to follow those. I actually have a question. When is a new network nurtured enough to ask for professional favors? For example, if you wanted an introduction to someone they knew really well, how would you know that, oh, it's the right time if you met them, and then at what point would you know that it's the right time to start to ask for an intro, for example?
Well, I think it depends on how the conversation goes. I need to give an example. So sometimes it goes well, sometimes it may not, and it's based on the response you get. So say you were talking about, oh yeah, I see that you have an interest in leadership, for example. It's like, absolutely. And say, well, I've been thinking about there's a way to ask without asking, where it's almost like you're hinting at something. I've been trying so hard. I'm so impressed with this and that and such, and I've been trying to really learn about someday I'm going to need to learn about XYZ because people like to feel like they are helping you. They might say, well, I can give you a recommendation. If they like you enough, they want to share something with you to help you out. It's like, oh, why are you taking photos and you're not using the portrait feature, for example? People want to show that they know something that you don't know. And if you open yourself up, be vulnerable enough to show that you're here to learn, if they're kind enough, they'll say, oh, yeah, yeah, I'm happy to connect you with so and so, if they're that kind of person. But if they, A, don't have that connection, or B, don't think they should be making that connection, or C, they're not even comfortable doing that, then they may not offer it up, if that makes sense. And so if you hint and you see how the reaction is, then you'll know what to do next. If it looks like they're just looking at you like, well, praise God for you, I'll be praying for you, then you know that they're probably not, you might have to be more assertive. You could do a couple of things. One, to say, well, that was a dud. Or you could say, wait a minute, do you happen to know XYZ? Would you be willing to introduce us? Ask politely. They could say yes or no, or, let me think about that. That's okay. You've asked, at least you've asked, right? Worst case scenario is they say no, but then they might say maybe. But the thing is, it's hard to tell. There are things that I've been able to um, do on my very first meeting with individuals, and there are other things that I just sensed that that flow wasn't there, and I didn't know how they were going to react to me, and I had to wait. And so you have to build your sense of people. You have to build your sense of people. If the conversation is really flowing nicely, um, you may see that there is an opportunity, an opening comes up, but don't make it a habit to ask on your first go round. That's usually what they tell you is you should try. But there are times when it's flowing so well that the opportunity is there and it's mutually desired, if that makes sense. So yeah.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. That means one should read the situation well and just
Really.
know when
Yeah.
to go in. Thank you so much, man, for that. I see that Pastor BC is on the line. I wonder if you want to say anything or.
Well, thank you all for being here. I joined to learn too, and the etiquette of eating is something, isn't it? You know, many of you guys go to some places, and everybody's looking at you and say, who is this guy? Where did he come from? And when you don't know, people don't tell you, and they're just looking at you funny. So now you now say, can I speak to you? Can I? They just say, this guy, he has not learned anything. So I think it's really good, very, very good. In fact, I was talking to our men earlier on today that maybe later in the year we should have maybe the king's daughters and kingdom men coming together and maybe jam bringing our young ladies, young men, to just go over some of the etiquettes of, things. It can go a long way to prepare them for a great future. So thank you all for being here. I believe that this material deserve more people from outside who can benefit from it. I will ask the organizers to please, if you can, let's use maybe the next one. Put it on your invite. Do you call it invite, whatever you guys used the other day? So that people who want to actually can join, they can see it there. I'm sure the organizers can think about that and place it there. Let's make it an outreach effort to impact other people's lives. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, sir, for that. And I'm sure that every members of the organizers are listening to do that promptly. If you don't mind, Mark, could you please pray for us just to settle the meeting?
Sure. Let's pray, everybody. Father, in the name of Jesus, we thank you so much for the opportunity to be here, to share together, learn together, so that we can move forward in your name to your glory. Father, shine through us, oh God. Help us not to be afraid, even when we're in midst of environments where we don't know what to say. Help us, oh God, to link up to the Holy Spirit to be able to teach us what to say. Father, Lord, oh God, that we would trust in you, because every conversation, every place we need to be, you are preparing a place for us. Help us to trust in you first and foremost, that you will place us by our helpers of destiny. But even more importantly, that you will help us to be helpers of other people's destiny. We thank you, we praise you, we glorify you for the organizers and the opportunity to share here today. For it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much, Ma. We
My
really
pleasure. Thank you, everybody.